Shalom, and welcome to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. This is a recording of our weekly Rashi study class with Rabbi Rebecca Schatz.
We're going to pick right up where we left off, which is chapter 2, verse 11.
Rashi in verse 10.
The Rashi in verse 10. You want to go back to it?
What done? We were discussing it. Maybe you were.
We had read it. Do you want to go back to it?
No.
Okay. Okay. We talked a little bit about that Rashi last week. I'm happy to hear if anybody has anything else to share on it. We were talking about King Saul, and a lot of people were trying to understand the ignoble piece of it. But if it's okay with people, I think we'll move on to the next verse, unless there are lingering things to share. Anybody? Okay. All right. So verse 11. Does someone want to read for us? I don't have any preamble for you today. Steve, you want to kick us off? Okay.
Uvachol yom vayom Mordechai mitalech lifnei chatzar beit hanashim ledat es shalom Esther uma yeyaseh ba. And every day, Mordechai would go or walk before the courtyard of the harem to learn about the welfare of Esther and what is happening, or what happened with her.
Yeah. And just, Stevie, because I know that you can answer this question and you already have the microphone, what does Uma Ye'aseh Ba actually imply in terms of grammar in Hebrew? What would the Ye'aseh be implying?
I guess that someone's going to do something to her.
Yeah, it seems as though it's like very directed, right? It's very directive language as opposed to kind of general language of like what was happening to her, which is what the English says here. But it seems to be a little bit more pointed, which is what he was going to do to her, right? Ma ye'aseh ba. So I just wanted to point that out. I'm not sure that that's like super, super important. It's kind of obvious, but I just wanted to point out. Larry.
I think it is important. You're pointing out something important, because go back to read the second half of the verse after that. Ladat et shalom Esther. So shalom Esther is a positive, peaceful, in the how it says how she was faring, but Shalom Esther is like Ma Shalomcha, how are you doing? But the word shalom is a very positive connotation there. And then afterwards, Uma Ya'aseh Ba is like the negative, waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Okay, good. Yes, Paul, just grab the microphone from Stevie, I guess, yeah.
I'm kind of wondering about the logistics. He's walking around in front of the harem. How could he see inside it?
That's a good question. It's probably a courtyard similar to, I don't know why this is the case. Maybe this will show my age or my generation. Maybe Stevie can speak to this too. I always think of Aladdin, the Disney movie. Just not on the flying carpet specifically, but just the idea of like an open courtyard, kind of being open to people being able to see in. That's what's in my mind. I don't really know. When we look at the visual here, it does seem like there's enough of like a public viewing that he could see in, but it's a really good point because first of all, these pictures are not historically accurate. So we have no idea if it's true. And also when you think of a courtyard, you don't actually, especially for a palace, you don't think of something that is open for everybody to be able to see, but rather kind of just the first step into the palace. And so it would be surprising for him to be able to have access into seeing her. What we brought up last time is this idea that maybe Mordecai had kind of enough power and clout that he was actually allowed into certain areas that other people wouldn't have been allowed into. And it's also possible, and we're going to see this, I think it's in 2 verses, but that Esther also had a little bit more power than other women did to potentially be in spaces that other women were not. So all of that is hypothesis, but it's a really good question. Those are just my guess answers. Okay, lots of other guess answers. Let me just go to Rick really quickly, and then we'll go around the table. Marshall, Rachel, Norm. Rick.
Yeah, back to the Ma Yaselo,
Yeah.
Ma Yaseba.
Yeah.
I thought Larry was going to say that was Haggai again, that Mordecai was checking on how he was treating her, and apparently she was doing well because she had shalom. She was peaceful. She was complete. So that's the way I would take that.
Okay, so I think it's actually the opposite in terms of the et shalom Esther. I think the reason it's actually placed first is similar to what Larry said in terms of like what you would hear on the streets of Israel, mashlomcha, right? It's a way of just kind of saying hello and walking away. It's like when we say, how are you doing? As you're already walking away from the person. Good, fine, thank you, right? So it's that kind of, you're not really checking in on the person. There are just niceties when you see another human being. So I think the point here is to know that what he was trying to do was understand how she was doing. And then, it's possible it was Haggai, it's possible it was the king, it's possible it was anybody. But just this idea that to see how she was doing and if anything had happened to her, right? Or if whoever the he is, had done anything to her, right? So I think it's just the opposite of what you were sharing. Marshall.
And it's in the future though. Yeaseh is future, right?
Yeah. What he will do to her, right? Exactly. Right.
Yeah, so that's different than the English that I'm looking in the red book.
Correct.
It says what was happening to her.
Correct.
That's a mistranslation. So
correct.
Anyway.
That's right. Yeah, that was you might not have been on yet, but that was the first thing that I asked Stevie to kind of explain for us, because that's exactly right. Marshall.
Yeah, actually, because it's a default form, it's a passive form to be something to be done for her. But here are some other translations of that.
Put it to your mouth. Yeah.
Here are other translations of it.
Okay.
Let's see, where is it here?
Verse 11.
What would become of her? This is a very old one. This is the old Sanchino one.
Mm-hmm.
And Robert Alter, I think, really tracks the language itself, the grammatical form of the language. What would be done for her?
Oh, that's nice.
Here's a passive form again.
Yeah, great. It's a nicer way to read it. Happening to her.
What would be? Yes.
Well, I said he will do for her, or
I said
future tense male.
What's the difference between the active and the passive?
Be done for.
It's just the vowels.
Yeah.
Right, which I think in terms of, for those who didn't hear Joel's question of what would the difference be between the passive and the active, it's just vowels, right? And if we think about how text was written, there were no vowels. So I think that's why there is some curiosity around what this could mean. Is it the passive? Is it the active? I think either way, what we're trying to understand is what was going on with Esther and who was affecting what was going on with her, whether it was good or bad. But what was going on with her? Rachel.
I'm simply assuming that Mordecai was able to get popular available gossip rather than to view inside. My understanding of harems is all the males that entered a harem other than the king were eunuchs.
Yeah.
And that Mordecai would not have been an exception. In my projection onto the story. So was it popular knowledge? And this is, again, reading myself in the story.
Sure.
Who went to the king last night? is that woman being invited back,
Mm-hmm.
because there's the procedure that all these 100+ women go through
Mm-hmm.
of, getting beauty treatments for a year. And then they go to the king. And what we know from having read this story before
Right.
is that Esther gets invited back
Right.
to the king repeatedly. And Mordecai, my guess is when he's asking what's happening with Esther,
Mm-hmm.
has she gone yet? What was the outcome? Because we had talked previously a few weeks ago about women in the harem who are not called back to the king, but also cannot leave the harem.
Right.
And my guess is that was the last thing the guy wanted for Esther.
So it's an interesting point to pick up on the word lada'at rather than to see, lir'ot, or maybe to hear, lishmoa, right? This idea of him learning about what was going on with Esther. It's a very good point that it doesn't have to be firsthand, right? So to Paul's question, and the hypothesis I gave, it's maybe not even important whether or not he did have that access to see in or to even speak to her, but rather that he was hearing about how she was doing, and hearing about if something had happened to her, because lada'at assumes that you are learning from someone else, right? I mean, he could be learning from Esther, but it seems almost impossible, right, for him to get the same kind of information from her in this current situation, and rather to hear whether it was gossip or just people who are in the courtyard milling about who were able to share any of that information. So thank you for bringing that piece up. That was very interesting. Norm.
Esther and Mordecai speaking directly with each other, especially if it happened more than once, would have been a giveaway as to her identity. But undoubtedly, there's this courtyard that's frequented perhaps by members of the harem who want to get outside for a few minutes or hours
A
in
smoke
a
break.
day. But undoubtedly also by the eunuchs and any female maids or attendants that they had who came there to take a break. And these things are rife with gossip always. That's true to this day. So
Are you trying to tell me that the outdoor, what's it called? The lobby minion is just full of gossip? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah.
That's where I should hang out if I want to hear all the gossip.
And
the lobby minion.
And what's more,
That joke took me too long.
Esther's almost undoubtedly not the only person in that harem who has friends or relatives that are interested in them, that come by and schmooze and gossip. So Mordecai shows up every day. He picks up gossip, especially about Esther, but also about others. He shares some information and not other information, and so it goes.
Great. Okay. All right, let's look at the Rashi. Stevie, you want to take it on for us?
Uma ye'aseva zechad mishnei tzadikim shenitan lahem remez Yeshua. So this is one of the two righteous men that is given a hint about redemption. David and Mordechai. They are David and Mordechai. David Shnemar Gamet Hari Gamet Hadov Hika Avdecha. David, as it states, I'll just read. Even the lion and the bear has your servant slain. Amar Lobo Di Davar Ze Ela Lismoch Alav Le Hilachim Imze. So David says to himself, this incident did not happen to me, only that I should rely on it and do battle with this one, Goliath. Right.
Or Goliath.
V'chein Mordechai Omer, Lo Eira Le Tzadeket Zo Shetilakach, למishkav nochri ela she'atida lakum lo shel Yisrael. It didn't happen to this righteous woman that she was taken and to be lain with a non-Jew, except that in the future she will rise up, I guess, to save the Jews or Israel. Lefichach haya mechazer ladat ma yehe besofa. Therefore, he was repeatedly. Okay, that's it. Okay, he would go to find out what would happen to her in, the end.
Yeah, or like he would return. Mechazer can also be like lachzor, right? To go. He would go back a few different times to see what would happen to her at the end. What is this Rashi saying? It's a lot of really big sentences and verses, but what is it actually saying? Barry? Rebecca? The microphone? Sorry. No, there's a microphone right in front of you.
So Rashi's drawing a parallel between David's experience, not actually communicating with God, but that God's presence was coming into David's life. And there's some significance beyond this thing with Goliath, that some future position that David will have for the Jewish people. And he's drawn a parallel between that and Mordecai having this prophetic experience that Esther's position, physically located in the harem and with the king here, that there's something more that's going to happen, and that his concern is what this revelation will become.
Okay, so Rashi seems to be stating what it means, the Dibora Machil Umaya Aseba, what would be done to her, with her, what was being done to her, right, whether it's passive or it's active. It's revelatory, right, prophetic. Rashi is trying to say Mordechai knew because he was a prophet, or Mordechai knew because he could see into the future, right? All Rashi is doing is saying what it meant that he would check in on her was that he had the ability to understand what was going to come of her later on in the future because of these two verses that he quotes. One is from David's story. The other one is from Mordechai's own inner monologue. It's not really proof, right? It's just a way of narratively understanding how Mordechai could feel satisfied and comfortable with that which he would know about what might be happening to Esther, knowing what was going to happen to her later on. So it's like saying, well, I know the end of the story, so all these terrible things that are happening in the middle, they're bad. I wish they weren't happening, but at least we know how the story ends. And so she has to go through that to get to the end. It's not great, right? It'd be better if she just didn't have to go through it at all. But that seems to be what Rashi is implying. Leonard.
You could say that if if he knew what was going to happen, then he didn't really need to check on her.
Mordechai, right. So that's the interesting part, is that what's the part right before this in the verse that says that he went there over and over to check on her. But what Stevie read at the end, right, these last 6 words, Haya mechazer ladat ma yeh besofa, right, he went back over and over again to find out what would be her fate. So it's like he knew, but he wanted to make sure, but... Right, exactly. Trust but verify. Exactly. Stevie.
Yeah, I don't know how much we're supposed to read into remez as really being like prophetic and that he knew, right? I think it's sort of like he's struggling to make sense of it.
Oh, okay.
Right, that
both David and Mordechai, or Rashi.
Yeah. Right, that, for that matter, this is even before all the bad stuff from which the Israels need to be saved. But that he's like, she's been taken, like there must be something going on in, God's plan. and he's just sort of like waiting to, for that to coalesce in a way that he can make sense of. And until then, he's going to like go every day.
Yeah, Paul.
From just the English, it looks like it's not really clear whether he is the recipient of a prophecy or just planning, just plotting to bring about a desired outcome.
Yeah, I think Larry's going to share a similar thought.
Absolutely. There's a battle going on here in terms of interpretation. There's Rashi's side, which is joined by Barry and others. This is all revelatory. This is all happening. And then there's my view, which is not unique to me, which is this is all the plan by Mordechai. And I think it's really clear in the commentary by Gorfinkel and Natan in this book.
Yeah.
In the previous verse in the panel, you've got Mordechai is instructing Esther.
Yeah.
She is his agent.
Right.
And just like the handler of an agent watches out to see what's happening to their agent as they're going along. Yeah. In the very next panel, you've got Mordechai, by the way, wearing a crown, or what appears to be a crown, which is really interesting. And he goes and he talks to, we don't know if this is Haggai or if this is a guard, but it's a single guard. And he's basically saying, is everything okay? Have you done what I paid you for? Have you put her in the right position? So it's all the planning side. I just want to say, it strikes me this battle has been going on and continues to this day for Jews. Are we the victims or are we the independent agents who take action to defend ourselves? I don't want to make too big a political point, but the debate rages.
Okay, Rick, and then Rebecca, and then Barry.
Yeah, can I ask about the form of mithalech? It could have been that Mordechai was just holeching in front of the court, but mithalech is that hipalel, so it's reflexive.
Yes.
Does that? So
I think it's just expressing the nature of his walking, which would have been not just to one direction, but as Julia said, but going kind of back
circling,
and forth or pacing.
Yeah. It adds to it.
Yeah. Whoever I called on next, I don't remember.
Rebecca. I just wanted to comment on the structure of the Rashi here. I thought it was interesting that there are things in quotations, especially where he's saying that David said to himself and Mordechai said to himself. So these are imagined quotes, not really quoting from the text in Tanakh. So I just thought this was interesting. I don't really recall seeing quotes like this. I see in Sepharia they use quotation marks. I don't know if all the Rashi texts here use quotes.
Yeah,
I thought it was interesting.
I can look to see if there's quotes elsewhere. This is Rashi writing a midrash, right? This is Rashi trying to explain out his reasoning for his response to this verse and writing a midrash to explain it out, which he doesn't always do. Sometimes he's a dictionary, sometimes he's just very practical, and sometimes he is. Well, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Avadecha. Right. It does here give a source. Yeah, the source is here, but it still is a monologue in the source itself. I actually don't know what this stands for. Shmuel Megillat Sefer, maybe, but I don't know what that is. Oh, Shmuel Aleph. There we go. It was written very bizarrely. 1736. So it seems that it is at least the David quote is quoted from a space, and then the other is from Esther Rabbah. So it's also quoted from a space, but not from Esther itself, not from the Megillah itself, but also from a midrash. But I still hold by what I said before in terms of he's still creating a midrash. He's creating his own midrash from midrashic thought and from text from before to be able to do exactly what we just did here, which is understand it as kind of a part of narrative rather than a definitional understanding of what these words mean. Barry.
So I'm thinking of the word doula, the person who accompanies the birth or facilitates the birthing process. And Mordecai is described here when I'm seeing as the doula of the redemption that will be coming through Esther, and this mitchalet, the structure of this walking is he is exerting his energy to bring about this. It's an act. It's an act of walking, not just walking his feet, but bringing about the birthing process, and that's what he's doing. He's actively participating in this redemption.
Nice. I think that works very nicely with Larry's idea of this is all part of a larger plan of, putting things in certain places to make sure that the outcome is what we need it to be. Yeah, Larry.
I think so.
Oh.
Barry, give me an answer. Barry's representative point of view says we have to pray, we have to check our mezuzot, we have to check a ritual, we have to act through God. We can't independently just say, hey, it's up to us. Take arms. Let's go do something. Or in Mordecai's, in my view, Mordecai's case, what he's doing here is he's doing the planning. He's not relying on.
Isn't that what the doula was that he was talking about?
I don't think so. You can ask Barry. I think it has to do with. No, I do want him to respond. I think it has to do with reliance on God to protect and to do the acts, as opposed to relying on one's own self or what.
Well, I'm kind of very close to that, but we are God's doula to bring it out. God doesn't do things on God's own. We are our participant. It's our doing here that helps God bring about what's going to happen. So that
we're not the architect, we're the contractor.
We're the partner.
Okay. I'm not sure how to respond, so I'm just going to leave that as it is. Okay, Stevie, go ahead.
Yeah, on that note, the super commentary on Sefaria, whoever wrote that, says that Rashi here is really focused on the word ba, that as opposed to reading it as what would happen to her or with her, Rashi's reading it as what would happen, by her or through her, or like with by means of her.
Where do you see that? How do you see the super commentary in Sefaria?
Click on the footnote.
Oh, on Sefaria itself.
Yeah.
Now everyone in the room is clicking on things. Not everyone. Most people. Okay, Leonard, go ahead while everyone's clicking. It's right next to Rebecca. Oh, or there. Yeah. That's good.
Well, I can't read his name anymore, but Yosef Ibn somebody or other.
Okay.
Says that he came by, Mordecai that is, came by every day to see whether or not she had been selected yet to go to the king's palace.
That's what I brought up, even though now we have text for it.
Paul, did you have a thought? Is that a hand up, or are you just applauding?
Yeah.
Okay.
No. When this meat halak, I knew I'd heard it. When God is walking around in the garden and discovers Adam and Eve are wearing clothes, he meat halaks in the garden.
Oh, very nice. Yeah. Okay.
And there's another instance too of meat halak, and I'm trying to remember which one it is. But yeah,
that's great.
Yeah.
So Paul's bringing up that in Gan Eden, in the story of creation, that the word mithalek is used when God is walking around the garden, which is really interesting. Thank you for bringing that up for us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good job, Paul.
All right, let's go to what, Rick?
I'm sorry, I just said good job to Paul.
Oh, good job to Paul. Okay, let's look at verse 12. Moving right along here. Anybody want to read? Stevie just read, so Stevie's not going to read again. Marshall, you want to do 12?
Uvhagia tor na'ara v'na'ara lavo el hamelech Achashverosh miketz hayot la kedat hanashim 12 chodesh ki ken yimlu'u yemei merukehen 6 chodashim b'shemen hamor v'shisha chodashim babsamim uftamrukei hanashim.
All right.
Okay.
You can read whichever translation you want.
I'll read Alter's translation.
Great. Sounds
Okay.
good.
And when each young woman's turn came to come to the king, at the conclusion of her having 12 months, according to the woman's rule, for thus would the days of their unguents be completed, 6 months in oil of myrrh, and 6 months in perfumes of women's unguents.
Is that the end?
I don't know. And in this fashion would be the young woman come to the king. Maybe that's the next sentence.
Yeah. That is the next sentence. I just wasn't sure if you were done because I'm not following along with your translation. Okay, so what's happening here? What do we now know? What's giving us clarity from this verse? Yeah, Leonard.
It's just telling us what the procedure is for the girls.
Yeah, great. The procedure and also the timing, right? We talked a lot last week about timing and everyone had their own hypothesis. But this is giving us a little bit more of a window into what that timing actually was. There are some commentaries that, if people have them in front of them, I was looking at earlier, that do talk about how the timing was different for Esther than it was for the other women. That this is very specifically a verse talking about na'ara v'na'ara, kind of just every other woman, but isn't specifically speaking about Esther, we don't think. So this was kind of the common system. This was the assembly line that one would go through before seeing the king, but the rabbis seem to think that this wasn't exactly how it happened for Esther. Yeah, Joel.
This could be connected to the previous verse where he's saying he's trying to find out what's going to happen to them, and this is what's going to happen to them. So this is what he found out.
Right. So very good. So what this seems to be is a detailed description of what's going on, right? Mordecai is in the courtyard. Mordecai wants to know what's going on with Esther. And what he finds out is that this is what's happening to them. Remember that if he is coming each and every day, that over a period of time, he's learning that these are the things that have been happening to them each and every day. And so this takes us back to, I don't remember what verse it was, but it takes us back to the verse that we looked at last week, which was talking about verse 9, which is talking about the different types of ways that the women were told to get ready or were beautified inside the palace before they saw King Achashverosh. And this seems to be their process, and this seems to be the timing. Yeah, Diane.
So the level of detail here makes it read either like a romance novel or just like reality, like describing some actual thing. It could be either one, right? But there's a level of detail here that seems like unusual for the story.
Okay, interesting. It is interesting that it's detailed, but I think to go back to Joel's point, if this is an account from Mordecai of what he was seeing each and every day, then it might seem detailed to us, but actually I would wonder, okay, well then what else was happening, right? Like this is actually then very generic, but it is very detailed in terms of the actual verses of the Megillah. It just seems like we should know more or have seen more if if he was going to actually be there each and every day. Did I see another hand? I thought I did. Oh, Larry.
I'm confused.
Okay.
But I also think that the translators, all of them, are also equally confused. So if you read this translation that most of you are looking at in Sepharia, you'll see that they don't think that this pasuk stands alone. And in fact, not only do they not think this pasuk stands alone, they think that the parenthetical part of the pasuk, which starts for that was the period spent, continues into the next pasuk, and then the next pasuk doesn't even complete the idea because the idea goes on to pasuk 14. So you don't have to do it right now or ever. But I think if you look over these three verses, there's a lot of confusion about what it is that the verses are really telling us. I don't mean confusion in the sense that we can't ultimately understand them, but for us to look at this pasuk and think we understand it from the translation, any of the translations, I think is just plain wrong. You see what I mean?
Yeah, no, I do see what you mean. I wonder if the English translation is what's adding to the confusion, which might be what you're referring to in terms of the people who come in and then translate the Hebrew. Yeah.
Even in the translation in here, for example.
Okay.
You start verse 12, it says,
right.
Each young woman would reach her turn to come before the king.
Mm-hmm.
Then the next verse, the young woman would come before the king.
Right.
I didn't see there that they haven't done, but they dealt with it in the translation that JPS translations dealt with it by putting it in
parentheses. Yeah, well, and that might actually go back to Diane's point, right? That it is very specific, but then coupled with the comment that I made to her comment, is that it actually doesn't tell us enough for us to understand the whole picture, right? That it seems like either we are missing pieces, or it seems as though because this was a recounting of Mordechai's observation, that there are pieces that are not as easily understood by us because he's just sharing with us his memory of something that we obviously weren't there to see. The thing that I think is happening here, and maybe Rick is about to talk about this. Actually, let Rick go first so I don't step on your toes if you're about to do this.
Thank you. I was going to do a trope thing about Uvhagia.
Yeah, that's what I figured you might be doing. Okay, great.
Yeah? Can I?
Yeah, go. Yeah.
Okay, so I look for the trope. So in this instance, if it's 12 months that they're waiting for this one moment, it's a pretty dramatic moment for the Na'ara to be brought to the king. So Uvhagia, that's passive, the arriving of her turn or whatever, but the arrival, the higia, that's the most important thing. If you could look ahead, if I can break the rule, look at 15. You got the pazer there.
That's really ahead. That could be 3 weeks from now. Okay.
Yeah, I know, but it's on the same page for me.
Yeah.
But the pazer is on Mordechai, first of all. But when they're introducing Esther at this moment, they give a munach and a munach and a munach lagarme and then another munach. So it's the drama leading up musically. I just really like that, and I wanted to share. So the music is really building the drama.
Okay, great. I wouldn't have stepped on your toes, and I'm excited to be able to do this, and you can help me with this, Rick, if you'd like. So if we look at 12, look at the screen if you can. If you're on Zoom, that's easy for you to do. I just broke this down. This is often how I teach Mishnah to students, actually, is that I break up the sentence in Mishnah. It's not based off of trope. It's often based off of certain words that kind of act as sentence structure. But here, I don't have my glasses on, so I can't see all the way over there, but I'm going to look at my screen. The idea here of how the sentence is broken down, right? If you look at the Sepharia translation, which is fine, or any other translation, you can see that this first piece of the verse ends, and I'm not going to call it a sentence because to Larry's point, it's actually a run-on sentence that's going to go for a few more verses.
Phrase.
phrase. Thank you. That's a better word. So when it came time for each and every young woman to come before the king Ahasuerus, if we look at the next piece, it's kind of like a colon, right? At the end of this time that the women were there, which was 12 months, Ki keni malu yemei meru kehen, because they were, this time was filled up with the time that they were being, I'm just going to use the word beautified because that's what's written here, but that we knew that word from last week when we talked about the different types of like scrubbing and the different types of perfumes and all those kinds of oils that might have been used. Then it was 6 months in this oil and myrrh, and then 6 months that they were in besamim and some kind of, I don't know, Havdalah spices. Yeah, just kidding. But some kind of spices, and they would be anointed, right, with that oil-based perfume that we were talking about last week on the women. So none of what I just shared was good English syntax, but I just wanted you to see that it seems as though it might be more of like a checklist of what was happening during the times that this was going on, rather than like a full sentence. And I don't know if that does anything for you, Larry, in terms of the understanding or the ability to think that people really had a grasp on how to translate this. But it seems to me, by looking at the trope and looking at the, which again did not exist when this was written, but looking at the sentence structure, that it seems to just be like, this is what was happening here, this is what was happening for this amount of time, and this is what was happening for this amount of time. And just to give away, sorry, Marshall, I'm going to steal your thunder for just a second. Rashi's one comment on this whole verse is just to mean that tor, which can mean like line or turn, actually meant time. It wasn't actually about whether or not you were standing in line or not and your turn was coming, but rather that this was the amount of time that every single thing took. Okay? Yeah, Barry.
So the simplest approach to this, the previous was Yasel Bach. So what's going to happen to her? What's going to happen to her is there's 12 months. After 12 months, something's going to happen. So whatever it's going to be, it's going to be after 12 months after all this stuff happens.
Yeah, maybe that's very possible. Was there another hand? Did you want to respond, Larry?
I mean, I still have lots of questions. For example, and someone probably simply answered, what is heyotla? Miketz at the end of heyotla. I don't understand. Kedat nashim is the law of women or the edict for women, which would seem to be obviously only for women in the harem. I don't want to go on because it's probably not worth it. But no, I'm not convinced that these explanations, make it clear. Yeah. What is clear to me is what Barry is saying is there's a 12-month period.
Yeah.
And then if you jump ahead for a second, and then after the 12-month period, the girl would go to the king, okay? And then after that, she would go in the evening and leave in the morning. So I guess that's the same time thing. So when she went at night. So we've got the 12-month period, and then we've got what happens in verse 14, what happens when she went that day. We're like collapsing time again. And then we're told that's it. She doesn't go again. Unless the king. So I understand it. I'm not going to complain. It just seems like a really awkward way to divide up the sentences.
Yeah. Yes, Stevie.
Yeah. If I were to include parentheses, I would move them to just be 6 months this, 6 months that.
Great. I'm so glad you brought that up. I was going to say the same thing. Yeah.
Like the rationale of what the year is spent on is substantive to the sentence.
Good. So does everyone see what Stevie's saying? He's basically saying that he would have moved the parentheses to start at 6 months, right? It's a math problem, which, I didn't become a rabbi to do math. But what this is basically saying is these are the 12 months that the women went through to be beautified, 6 months doing this and 6 months doing that. We've already heard about all the different things that they had to do. It's now just breaking it down for us in terms of timing. Okay, so what Stevie was saying is that instead of having that parentheses there, having it right before the word 6, if we were going to have parentheses anywhere, might make more sense. Marshall, yeah.
I'm thinking of what it takes to become a priest. You can't have no physical deformity or no blemish. And it seems to me that Robert Alter is really recognizing that here, where he says 6 months in oil of myrrh and 6 months in perfumes and woman's unguents. This is another fantastic detail of the fairy tale plot. Each of these beautiful virgins spends a full year steeping herself in fragrant oil, perfumes, and unguents, so that when she comes to the bed of the king, her body will in every one of its cells be in a state of perfect erotic attractiveness.
Wow. Okay. Well, there you go. I'm just going to leave that. Great. No, I mean, I think that we obviously know why this is all being done is for her to seem attractive and for the king to then choose her, right? Or any woman that's going through this, but we're mostly focused on Esther. And so this idea that all of this good smelling stuff would make her more attractive to the king. Okay, Rachel, I see you, but we're gonna go to this next verse just so that we make sure we have time to kind of finish the sentence here. Someone want to read 13 for us? Okay, Norm, you just need a microphone.
Uvoza hanara ba al hamelech es kol asher tomar yinasein lo lavo ima mebeis hanashim ad beis hamelech. And when the girl would be coming to the king, she would request and was given whatever she wanted to take with her or to go with her from the first harem to the king's home.
Okay, so this seems actually to be pretty good for the woman, right? I'm excited to hear if Elon has thoughts on that, but it seems to be like we're really setting the woman up for success here, actually, right? She went through all of this preparation, and now whatever she needed in order to make this transition from one place to another, albeit from a place of what probably felt like more safety to a place of uncertainty, would be my guess, that she was able to take with her whatever she needed. I find Rashi's comment particularly funny. Norm, do you want to just read it for us? And then I'm happy to hear people's responses.
Kol asher tomar, kol sachok, umine zemer. Any kind of entertainment or types of music. Not only what does she want to wear, what jewelry does she want, how does she want her cosmetics done, but even outside things.
Right. So think about, for a second, like a beauty pageant, right? Where I just happened to be somewhere where Miss Congeniality was on the TV in the waiting room. And so I'm thinking about this. But when they come through to show their talents, right, they all look a certain way because they have to, but then they get to present themselves in whichever way is going to make them look best. So I'll take it away from beauty pageants for a second. Think about a sports game. If some baseball look at me channeling Rabbi Kligfeld. Okay, when you go to a baseball game, if someone makes a home run or someone is being introduced on the field for the first time, they have a song. Right? They have a song that introduces them onto the field that is specific to their name or a nickname or whatever. My brothers would be so proud of me right now. I'm feeling very good about myself. That they have something that presents them in a certain way. That's what Rashi is trying to get us to understand. The women had no say in what they looked like or what they smelled like, right? We just heard that from the other verse. But what they did have a say in is how they were presented and what would kind of give them the best foot forward in terms of what would be entertaining to, we assume, the king, but probably also make them feel feel comfortable in terms of what was around them to present them in a way that they wanted to be presented. Okay, Elon, and then I think Alan had a hand.
This is not quite as innocuous as Rashi is presenting it, and as you've just articulated. This is not a baseball walk-up song or even a beauty pageant song. This is more aligned to a high-end bordello, and there are. By the way, there are plenty of people who would argue that sex workers are in control of their own destiny, and it's perfectly fine and dandy. But actually, let's be honest, this preparing the women to spend the night with the king, she wasn't going to go there and play chess, right? So this this is actually, it's Rashi, like, whatever, she got to have her own music, isn't this delightful? No, actually it's not. The whole thing is not delightful.
For sure.
Having said that, we get that Esther was on a mission, and unlike many spies throughout history, she had to do what she had to do in order to accomplish an end. But let's not kind of minimize what this really is.
100%. Yes, I was definitely not trying to minimize it, and I appreciate you for pointing out that this was not a good scenario, right? This is not something that we should be proud of. And I think what we are seeing here is that in a situation that was so out of the control of women, because remember from verses before, they were brought there by men, including Esther, but just by the way, brought there by men, told how to dress by men, then set up to go and meet a man in the way in which he wanted her to be met, accompanied by a man who was in charge of them, right? None of this is a good scenario showing any kind of power or autonomy to these women. The one thing that I think Rashi is adding here is that there is an element of request, whether or not that, to your point, Elon, whether or not that is just like a very small little pinch of dust in the way of like, okay, she got this one little thing, or is just a way of adding to the discomfort of women having to set themselves up to be a certain way to, again, then have no power when in the presence of whoever they're going to, whether it was the king first or someone before him. Okay, Alan, Norm, Stevie.
This is just an unbelievable sense of what's going on, that you're waiting for 1 year, then you get to go before the king for essentially a one-night stand.
Right.
And then you're going someplace else and you're waiting for the king to choose you again in the future if you find favor in the king's eyes.
Mm-hmm.
It is, I think Elon is right. This is like a high-level approach of what's going on. And as you noted, Rabbi Schatz, it's not just the notion of the clothing and but whatever else she would want to be able to find favor in the eyes of the king.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a tremendous amount of you get one shot after you're going through this for 1 year.
Right.
You get one night to be able to entice the king. I mean, if that's not overtly sexual, I don't know what else would be.
100%. And we don't have to go through the hypothesis of this, but if I were one of these women, I'd be very glad for those 12 months to be over, to hopefully get on with whatever is coming next, because after that one night, either I stay or I go. But either way, things get better for me than they have been, right? And so maybe I get to get out of here and go back to whatever my life was, or my life becomes one where now I'm in a palace, which for most of these women, my guess, even if not a life of free will and rights and all of those kinds of things, I don't really think that existed for women in general at this time, but would be living a life of luxury. Right. So an interesting way of thinking of that timing as well. Stevie and then Norm.
So to narrow this back down sort of to the nitty gritty of the words.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the word uvazeh.
Yeah.
And the translations that I'm seeing seem to be saying that it's in the state of everything we just described before.
Right.
That, you know, now she's going to the king. I can't quite articulate why, but I think grammatically it's actually should be looking forward, not backward, as saying, you know, thusly is how they would come to the king, that everything that they would ask for, they would have, right? And it's that is actually what the word is pointing to. I think otherwise, like the transition from El HaMelech to Et Kol Asher Tomar is hanging there somehow. I don't know. I can't quite articulate it, but I think the word is looking to the rest of the verse and not to the past verse.
Interesting.
In this translation, you see the end of the parentheses, those parentheses.
Right, true. Yeah,
I think that while some boundaries existed, the women had a lot of choice in how they presented themselves physically. They could pick what clothes they want to be wearing, which could be very modest or rather immodest.
Yeah.
They could be dripping with jewelry in a way that some of us would find garish, or they could have just a minimal amount of jewelry that really accentuates their natural beauty. They could have makeup so that their eyes were very painted. They could also have something that has a much more natural look, or anything in between on all of these issues. So I think they actually had a lot of say, if they wanted it, in how exactly they were presented. And they could also bring, you know, a suitcase or a trunk or a whatever of things they simply wanted to take with them from the first harem to the second harem, if that was going to be their fate, which was for most of them quite likely.
Yeah, Larry.
I think I understand it because of the graphic novel so much better. And I just sent to you guys a picture from the panel on the page that deals with verses 13 and 14. And it's absolutely, in my opinion, brilliant. Maybe somebody can make a better copy. The girl who is clearly not Esther in this panel, it's not Esther, it's another girl. At the top, she's full of herself. I'm in charge, I can get whatever I want. And then I'm jumping ahead because it's jumping ahead. She would enter in the evening, and there she is all alone going to the door of the king. And there's a panel with only and. It's night, it's dark. You're left to your imagination. What is happening at night? In the morning, then she would return. So she's going out again. And then, right. And then the next, and now, and this is something I truly didn't understand until now. She passes by the harem of the virgins and the harem of Haggai. She's not admitted there anymore. She's not part of that harem. And he says to her, go to the other harem where you'll be in charge of Shazgad's. And there's a picture at the bottom of the page where she looks so forlorn that now she has no power whatsoever unless the king wants her to come. It's a description in general of what's happened. Huh?
The book that Stevie's reading has and he sent the picture also.
It's the next verse. Women dressing each their own way. But yeah, but if we're going to the next verse, this has a locked door, which is
so we will go to the next verse, but not today. We will go to the next verse tomorrow. What I want us to take into consideration for the next verse, before we even get there, is just to, and again, I've said this now a few times in chapter 2, not as much in chapter 1, but read back a few verses before next class, because we're really stuck in the middle of sentences that we end up talking about in this class for many minutes. So I want you to have a concept of the entirety of the setting that we're in before we go to the next sentence, because the next sentence is though it's part of everything that we are speaking about today. It moves us into the next realm, which both Larry and Stevie just took us into a little bit, but it's taking us to kind of like the next step of what was to happen with these women. So before next class, just read from verse like 9, just to get a general sense of where we are. You can even do 8, but 9 is really where it starts. Okay, thank you for learning together today.
You've been listening to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. If you enjoy these podcasts, we invite you to write a review on the Apple Podcast website or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information on Temple Beth Am, Los Angeles, please visit www.tbala.org.